Hello, everyone, and many thanks for your attention for joining this stream. And of course, many thanks to all the members of our community who will join either later on or will watch this video of stream in a recording sometime during the day or maybe tomorrow. Today is, of course, 29th of July. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, Moscow and Vladikavkaz time. It's the same time zone. And as you know, I'm currently in North Ossetia, Alania, Autonomous Republic of the Russian Federation, in North Caucasus region. And I'll stay here together with family for next couple of weeks. And will report from streets of Vladikavkaz, as I already did, by the way, at least on one occasion. I have prepared quite interesting, in my opinion, hopefully you will agree with me, news segment for you. And after news segment, as always, we will have like 15, 20, 30 minutes, relatively short community chat, exchange of opinions in real time. And so, yes, before I start, only what is left is to just remind our community, especially new members of community, that well, if you like my work, dear friends, if you like my channels and want to support, you can do it through several means. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform or Boosty platforms. You can subscribe to my Patreon or Boosty pages. You can use crypto for support, or during the live stream, you can use super chat feature or rant, as it's called there, on Rumble, and become a premium subscriber on Rumble. Everything counts, of course, as a help to maintain this project. And many thanks to everyone who supported and continues to support. That's been said, dear friends, let's go through some news now. Let's start with the news segment, and traditionally I will start this stream with a report from Russian media that is based on the latest update of Defense Ministry about work of Russian air defense systems on duty overnight. So reports are that during the past night, Russian air defense systems intercepted 74 drones that were launched by formerly Kiev regime, in reality NATO, obviously, to strike deep into Russian territory. To be more precise, 43 drones were intercepted over the Bryansk region, 22 drones over the Rostov region, 6 drones over territory of Kaluga region, 2 over territory of Smolensk region, 1 drone over the Leningrad region. Unfortunately, as a result of these drone attacks on Russian Federation, some of the drones seems like managed to bypass air defense systems on duty. And this morning, number of sources reported that as a result of this Ukrainian NATO drone attack on Russian Federation, in Rostov region, a passenger train and the freight train was targeted, as a result of which windows were shattered in at least 2 carriages of passenger train number 59 that was moving from Novokuznetsk to Kislovodsk. Obviously, passengers were evacuated, and also in a station area, and this happened, by the way, in a Salsk station, fire erupted as a result of this attack. I can show you some videos of aftermath of this terrorist attack of Kiev regime and NATO. So, as you can see, friends, videos are there. So, obviously, it is difficult to say currently level of damage, but allegedly, there was no, due to luck or miracle, there was no death among civilians in that passenger train. Of course, during the day, most likely Ministry of Transport of the Russian Federation, possibly Defense Ministry, will share additional information, and of course I will publish it on my Telegram and Twitter X page, maybe in next updates, or maybe even in second news update today that I might make for a Patreon and Boosty. Let's see how they goes news-wise, obviously. So unfortunately, as I have said many times before, no air defense system in this world, even the best one, as it is in case of Russia, are capable of intercepting 100% aerial targets constantly, and time to time, some drones are managing to bypass air defense systems and causing damage and casualties among civilians. And when it comes to civilian casualties, dear friends, you're not going to hear this news, for example, in any of the Western so-called media outlets, in Western MSM, but Russian media, of course, reporting that, for example, as a result of Ukrainian, I will add NATO strikes, 24 civilians were killed, and over 130 civilians were injured past week. Just past week, by the way, as a result of these terrorist attacks that NATO and Kyiv regime are conducting against Russia. I can give you some details from this report. So 24 civilians were killed in Ukrainian. Yet again, I will add NATO attacks on Russian regions in the past week, and over 130 people suffered injuries. Radion Miroshnik, the Russian Foreign Ministry's ambassador at large, tasked with overseeing the Kyiv regime's crimes, told the TASS news agency. The envoy pointed out their enemy had fired nearly 2,800 projectiles at the Russian territory in the past week, most of them made in a NATO countries. So no wonder I'm almost always, by the way, highlighting that this is not just Kyiv regimes, this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky that is conducting these terrorist attacks, but it's NATO itself, right? Because after all, weapons are provided by NATO, and flight path and targeting data is also provided by NATO. So clearly this terrorist organization that NATO is, maybe not openly, but definitely directly involved in this war against Russia. Obviously, everybody nowadays are talking about also new ultimatum, let's say, of Trump of 10, 12 days. As you know, dear friends, like a week ago, Trump came up with an ultimatum against Russia and said that if in 15 days, or if during the next 50 days, Russia would not capitulate, that's basically what he was saying. If Russia would not agree on the Western demands, then, he threatened with sanctions, tariffs, and something else, right? And while being in Scotland, he once again spoke about this ultimatum, and he said that, 50-day ultimatum is no longer relevant. Now he has a new time frame. Let's listen to his statement in a short video and then continue.
Earlier, you said that you were going to change the deadline from 50 days. So what is your new deadline? What
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
So 12 or 12 days, probably either today or tomorrow, Trump will make his position a little more clear. Probably he will post about it something on his true social network. But in any case, Russia has rejected this ultimatum talk from Washington. And I can give you a reaction of Russian side on that in a minute's time. But first of all, let's talk about what might happen after this 10 or 12 days. Obviously, many experts or commentators in alternative media and also in Western MSM or Western or world media are talking about possible scenarios, what US might do. On surface, we can see threats to impose sanctions, additional sanctions on Russia, and also secondary sanctions on allies of Russia or trade partners of Russia that buy from Russian Federation oil, gas, or oil products, and so on. And I think, even though this threat is on the surface, I think this is most definitely kind of a bluff. I remind you, dear friends, that Trump already announced that if it comes to these sanctions and secondary tariffs or sanctions on Russian allies, he will impose 100% tariff on allies, right? On Russia's allies. This is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. One should keep in mind, by the way, that when it comes to Russian, let's say, energy exports, by the way, main partners with Russia in this regard are China and India, of course, also Brazil, by the way. This is BRICS member states, obviously. And I don't think US leadership will dare to sanction either of these countries with 100% tariffs. I really don't think so. After this 10, 12-day ultimatum, Trump might impose maybe some 10, possibly 20% tariffs, but not 100% tariffs, by the way, for sure. And therefore, certainly don't believe that US will ever adopt a bill that was created in the US Senate by Senators Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham that indicates 500% tariffs on Russian trade partners. It's just not happening because it will devastate US economy, first of all, right? So it's a bluff. That's my take on the situation. And when it comes to sanctions on Russia itself, then in this regard, we just simply don't care. I mean, they can impose another 20,000 sanctions if they want, or we just don't care. And Russia did demonstrated already that country is very well capable of dealing with this Western pressure. I remind you that already collective West introduced some 30,000+ sanctions, by the way, and Russia is most sanctioned country ever in world's history, right? So that's the one thing. In my personal opinion, what we should be focused more on is that, I think after this 10, 12-day ultimatum, US, UK, France, Germany, and their proxy terrorist regime in Kiev will launch a massive, or they will try to launch massive. How successful they would be, that's a different story, but they will try to launch massive sabotage activities inside the Russian Federation. They will use most of their assets that they have inside the Russia, and unfortunately, I'm afraid they do have some assets inside the Russia. And obviously, counter-terrorism and counter-intelligence institutions here in Russia are working actively to neutralize these assets. So first, most likely they will try to launch these massive sabotage operations all over the Russia to distract communications, literal communications, internet, phone, also transport communications, logistics, basically to distract logistics big time. Simultaneously, most likely these NATO countries and their proxy will launch large-scale, maybe even unprecedented scale of long-range strikes with drones and missiles deep into Russian territory. They will most likely target Moscow and St. Petersburg. Also, and I'm quite sure Russian militaries are preparing for such a development. Although one should keep in mind that I don't think US or UK or any of the other NATO member states will get engaged in this war against Russia openly. They will still maintain plausible deniability in their minds. At least they will use a Kiev regime, right? They will say whatever had happened, it's Kiev regime, it's not Washington or London or Paris or Berlin, right? But we all know who is behind these attacks, right? We know it now and we will know it tomorrow. It's just too obvious. So that's what they think, by the way. They will try to launch large-scale sabotage operations inside the Russia, large-scale drone and missile strikes deep into Russian territory, possibly with not just 100, maybe even 1,000 of drones and the missiles, right? Especially drones, by the way. They don't have thousands of missiles to launch, but they do have hundreds of them, right? And they are actively transferring these weapon systems into Kyiv-controlled territory right now, these days. And one of the reasons, dear friends, why Trump dropped this 50-day ultimatum to 10, 12 days is that I think Russian military intelligence successfully located the warehouses where Kyiv regime was storing, Kyiv regime and its NATO allies were storing these long-range weapon systems. And the Russian military successfully targeted these areas, including in the Starokonstantinov airfield, which was a main target of Russian long-range precise strikes day before yesterday, right? And maybe to minimize or shorten logistical time frame, Trump was recommended by his generals or maybe by Keir Starmer and British militaries to shorten this time frame up to 10, 12 days because they are sending these weapon systems. Russia is destroying these weapon systems, and 50 days after 50 days there might be no weapons left, these long-range weapon systems left in Kyiv-controlled territory, or very few of overall volume that was allocated to be sent there, right? So maybe there is a connection there. I cannot know for sure, but maybe there is a connection in this regard. Also, dear friends, I think NATO has already prepared yet another suicidal offensive operation of the Kyiv regime, probably incursion operation into Russian Federation, maybe in the Bryansk region, and possibly in Belgorod or Kursk direction, but I think most likely NATO has prepared their operation, yet another suicidal operation that Kyiv regime will undertake in direction of Bryansk region, and we will find out soon if my reading of the big picture is correct. Hopefully, Russian militaries are locked and ready to take out enemy forces whenever they will try to attack Bryansk region or conduct incursion into a Bryansk region. And obviously, question will rise: how will Moscow respond? What is going to be continuation of this escalation? And I think after this large-scale, in my personal opinion, inevitable attempt of the West to conduct a massive destruction of life of the ordinary people here inside Russia, while sabotaging communication, sabotaging logistics, and so on. Also, do it through inevitable, in my opinion, large-scale or unprecedented scale long-range strikes on Russia that NATO will launch after this ultimatum, and also do it through potential attempt to invade Russian territory again. Moscow probably will have no option but to really retaliate this time, and not just against Kyiv regime, this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, or their military and logistical assets. But I think there will be high probability at that point that Russia will retaliate on U.S., British, French, and German military assets. Where and when exactly is anybody's guess, but I think Moscow will not really have an option but to take such actions, such steps that will force globalists, that will force neocons in US and their puppets that are acting as presidents and prime ministers and so on in governments of collective US countries to basically come to their senses finally and face the reality that if they continue escalation with Russia, that will mean full-scale war. That will mean full-scale war between NATO and Russia. And then we will see what is going to happen. I think after that point, globalists will finally begin de-escalating, or Western ruling class will finally begin really de-escalating, because I don't think they are suicidal. That's how it is. But we are getting very close, in my personal opinion, to unprecedented scale of escalation between NATO and Russia, with the high risks, with increased risks of a full-scale war between NATO and Russia. I still don't believe that it comes to full-scale war and a full-scale nuclear exchange. I don't believe this will happen because, in my opinion, Western elites are not suicidal, not that dumb, right? And once Russia will take strong actions against their enemy forces, including US, France, UK, Germany, Poland, some others maybe, against their military assets, I think for a short time there might be the exchange of strikes, right, between NATO and Russia in a, let's say, limited scale. But eventually, Western ruling class will realize that they cannot continue, because that will mean a full-scale war with Russia. And they are not suicidal. They will begin de-escalating. They will back down because they have to. They lost this proxy war, by the way, right? Entire NATO is fighting against Russia. Entire collective West is fighting against Russia. They are financing this war. They are sending weapons with this war, and they are using best fighters they can use, which is our people, by the way, that were brainwashed in Kiev-controlled territory on this former Soviet Republic, Ukraine, right? I don't think the US or British or French armies could give us such a fight as our brainwashed cousins did in Ukraine, right? This is a NATO war against Russia. This is a collective West is conducting war against us, and I think time come to take the war on their territory. And this is going to happen, by the way, soon. Once after this ultimatum expires, NATO will go ahead with the next phase of escalation. I think Russia will bring this war to their territory with retaliatory strikes. Let's see how it's going to go. But one should always keep in mind, dear friends, that it's not Russia that is seeking escalation. It's a collective West. It's a Western ruling class and these so-called elites of the West that are constantly escalating, right? One should always keep that in mind. And as I said, Russia rejected, by the way, this ultimatum talks from Trump or the West. And we have, for example, a comment from former Russian president, current deputy chairman of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, who posted basically in response to Trump's ultimatum. Next, Trump's playing the ultimatum games with Russia, 50-day or 10-day. He should remember two things. Russia is not Israel or even Iran. That's the first. And second, each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. Don't go down this Sleepy Joe road. Dmitry Medvedev recommended to Trump, and he's very clear, isn't it? Every step towards further escalation, including ultimatums, is a step towards war, direct war between Russia and US, which will mean end of US, right? Which will mean total obliteration of US. And one might say, well, Russia will be obliterated too. I mean, by the way, we don't want this war to happen, but if it comes to full-scale war, full-scale nuclear exchange, yes, there are going to be no winners, by the way. We will die, and our enemies will die. Everybody will die. That's how serious the situation is. And you are the witness, dear friends, how many times Russian leadership warned Western politicians, Western political class, Western so-called elites, to use brakes, to de-escalate, because they are bringing this world towards their end, right? Towards their devastating end. But unfortunately, Western ruling class did not listen and continues to ignore all Russian warnings, by the way. which is very unfortunate, to say the least, right? Also, Medvedev, by the way, went to comment on Lindsey Graham's statements. Obviously, Lindsey Graham, being extreme Russia hater, went on to celebrate sort of Trump's new ultimatum, 10-12-day ultimatum, and Medvedev reacted on that too. It is not up to Graham or Trump to decide when to sit down for negotiations, Medvedev said. Let me give you a little more details on that. Deputy head of Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, responded to Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, and shame on South Carolina, by the way, for having such a disgraceful element as their senator, as their representative. Something wrong with people there, I can tell you. 100%, by the way. They have no brains whatsoever. I mean, freaking zombies, man. And I'm insulting them, by the way, intentionally, absolutely. Right? South Carolina's electorate that supports Lindsey Graham is a brainwashed, brain-dead freaking animals, man. I'm 100% convinced in that, because no decent human being with brains will ever support Lindsey Graham, man. Period. Right? Period. But nevertheless, so Dmitry Medvedev responded to this Lindsey Graham's statement that it is not for him or U.S. President Donald Trump to decide when to sit down at the negotiating table in a Ukrainian conflict. It is not, we have a quote here, it is not for you and Trump to decide when to sit down at the negotiating table. Negotiations will end when all the goals of our military operations are achieved. Work for America first and foremost. Grand pass. Medvedev wrote in H. He did not use or he used grand pass. No, he, I believe, used some different. He mocked basically Lindsey Graham and Trump with his comment. Grumps. He used grumps, by the way. Yes, grumps. Okay. Nevertheless, this is Medvedev's comment on that, and if you notice, dear friends, Medvedev is becoming more and more critical in his comments, towards Trump. If Putin maintains diplomatic language in his statements, Medvedev clearly has no patience for these sickening elements that are threatening Russia from the collective West. And one might argue, and that Medvedev is basically saying what also Putin has to say. And if so, then I guess Putin's patience is also running out. Yet again, dear friends, I think first of all, we will find out soon, but I think once US and other NATO countries will escalate with Russia militarily, when this 10-12-day ultimatum will end, Russia will respond, I think, and Russian response will be in a scale that will finally force Western ruling class to come to their senses, face their reality, and acknowledge that they lost. Even if they will hesitate initially, and even if they will authorize their militaries to strike back on Russia, and if there will be some exchange, let's say limited exchange of strikes, eventually NATO will back down and capitulate, because another option is a complete obliteration of all NATO member states. So they will have to make very serious choices, right? And yet again, we should keep in mind that it's not Russia that is seeking this escalation. It's a collective West, and many people worldwide are for reasons surprised that Russia did not until now take some very strong steps against its enemies. They are surprised big time, right? And they're, I think, grateful because due to these restrained policies of the Russian leadership, maybe this world still exists. But everything that has its beginning has its end too, right? And that can be said about patience of the Russian leadership, and that can be said about pain tolerance of the Russian Federation, because we are feeling pain, by the way, right? Pain that is caused by NATO directly. And at some point we will retaliate, and retaliate with no mercy, man. That's how it's gonna be. RT is reporting that, Lavrov also commented on this war that NATO or collective West is waging against Russia, and his statement is that Russia alone is against the entire West for the first time in history, which is, in some sense, yes, might be true, but in other sense, I would not say Russia is necessarily alone, right? Or we can have different opinions on that, but nevertheless, let's go through some details here. So Russia is fighting the West alone for the first time in history and must rely solely on its own strength. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has stated, speaking at the Territory of Meanings Forum on Monday. Lavrov highlighted the unprecedented geopolitical landscape Russia found itself in following the escalation of the Ukraine conflict in 2022, which led to a heated standoff with the West. The main task is to defeat their enemy. For the first time in history, Russia is fighting alone against the entire West. In World War I and World War II, we had allies. Now we have no allies on the battlefield, so we must rely on ourselves and not allow any weaknesses, he said. Lavrov stressed that Russia will not back down from its core security demands, which led to the Ukrainian conflict. We insist on what is our legitimate demand. No dragging Ukraine into NATO, no NATO expansion at all. It has already expanded right up to our borders, contrary to all promises and the documents that were adopted, he said, adding that the settlement of the conflict should also recognize the new territorial reality on the ground. Lavrov also likened the West's behavior to that of childhood bullies. When you are a kid messing around with other boys in the yard, sometimes a big kid, 3 or 4 years older, shows up and starts chasing the little ones, he said. That's roughly what the West is doing to everyone else right now. Moscow has stated on number of occasions that NATO expansion and Ukraine's aspirations to join the US-led military bloc, terrorist organization, I will say that NATO is, among the key reasons of the conflict, which is obviously true. And yet again, I can understand what Lavrov is talking about, from where he is coming from in this statement. But yet again, I don't think we are alone. We are definitely not alone. After all, North Korea helped Russia on the battlefield directly with its military personnel. And, Russia did not ask for military assistance. Otherwise, I'm quite sure more countries would send its troops, by the way. More countries from all over the world. From Europe to Global South to South Africa to South America to African continent. Many countries would send their militaries to help Russia. I have no doubts about that. Right? But obviously we should first of all rely on ourselves. And we have to be strong about it. We just have to be stronger. We don't really have options here. Right? We have to win in this proxy war that West is waging against us. Because we all know what West wants, right? They want to divide Russia, kill as many Russians as they possibly can, enslave rest, and then rob this country from everything. That's what they want, by the way, and we cannot allow this to happen. As simple as that, right? And if it's necessary to neutralize the entire West, then okay, let's freaking do it, man. If it comes to either we're gonna die or them gonna die, then choice is easy, right? Or if we all gonna die, then okay, we are ready for that too. But we're not gonna allow our enemies win, by the way. It's just not happening. And better Western elites realize that. We will all die, but will not allow West to win. It's not happening. That's how it is, man. And I think everybody understands our stance, right? We didn't start this war, well, but we will finish it for sure, and on our terms. That's how it's gonna be. Let's continue, dear friends. TASS News Agency is reporting, and I shared this information yesterday too, but because yesterday's update was late in the day, not many members, or not that many members of our community did saw that video. So the report is that Russian armed forces liberated Boykovka and Belgika settlements in a DPR. One settlement is on the southern outskirts of Pokrovsk. Another is on the northern eastern flank from Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration. Also interesting report that Russian forces strike Ukrainian Special Forces base housing US-made Black Hawk helicopters. So at approximately 1600 hours yesterday, that was, I believe, local time, Russian forces launched a precision strike on their Priluki air base in Chernihiv region, a facility used on a facility that is used by Ukrainian military intelligence. Their target was a US-supplied UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter previously delivered to Ukrainian Special Operations Forces. According to Russian military sources, the helicopter was rendered inoperable and now requires full replacement. And okay, helicopter, it's a success, obviously, good strike. But my hope is that during this attack on this base, Kiev regime suffered significant losses among its personnel, military personnel from this special forces of main intelligence directorate. These are bloodthirsty Nazi terrorists and mass murderers, and all of them should be neutralized, by the way, now or tomorrow or day after, but all of them have to be neutralized. There can be no mercy towards these Nazi terrorists, Nazi mass murderers, right? But nevertheless, good strike, success, and it happened in Chernihiv region, by the way, and that operation definitely can be seen as an indicator that Kiev regime is actually concentrating significant forces from reserves, whatever reserves they might have, maybe to launch incursion operation into Bryansk region from Chernihiv. And I definitely see such a risk because every summer, by the way, every summer, NATO is basically ordering the regime to launch offensive operations. Usually it's suicidal offensive operations, but that was a case during the previous summers, right? And I don't think this summer will be any different. So therefore, I think there is a high probability that after Trump's ultimatum will expire, we will see not just an assault on Russia by NATO countries and their proxy Kiev regime when it comes to sabotaging activities of their assets inside the Russian territory, and also not just escalation with long-range strikes deep into Russian territory with drones and missiles, including against Moscow and St. Petersburg. But I'm afraid we will probably also see yet another suicidal offensive operation of the Kiev regime, possibly in Bryansk direction. We will find out soon. We will find out soon, right? Today, as I said, today or tomorrow, Trump probably will make it little clear. Is it a 10-day ultimatum or 12? Because with Trump, you just never know. right? He may say something today and tomorrow exactly the opposite. That's how he is operating, right? Nevertheless, let's continue. And we have this report that allegedly Germany is sending 11 more IRIS-T air defense systems to Ukraine to give control territory. And well, this information was reported by RT and many other channels, by the way. And even though I shared information on my Telegram and Twitter X page, I have to say that I do have some doubts that Germany is actually capable of sending 11 batteries of IRIS-T missile air defense systems. Do they even have so many? I don't know, but that's what reports are, by the way, in the media. If true, then well, Germany is basically being truly demilitarized, isn't it? In many ways, including in terms of its air defenses, because just a couple of days ago there was reports in the Western media, or so-called media, that Germany has already sent 3 out of 5 promised Patriot batteries to Kyiv regime. And now this report about 11 IRIS-T batteries. Wow. I wonder how long it will take for Russian forces to locate these batteries and take them out. Week, maybe 2. We will see. Also, I think interesting news that Ukraine's national debt jumped by nearly 4 billion in June, pushing the total to 184.84 billion, according to Ukraine's Ministry of Finance. And well, for a normal country, this is a deal, right? This is a big deal when economy is almost non-existent and their foreign debt is national debt is increasing big time, but not for Kyiv regime, because why would they care? Does Zelensky looks like someone that cares about national debt of Ukraine? Of course he does not, by the way. And I remind you, dear friends, that this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky is demanding from the West more than $120 billion for next year. More than 120 billion for next year, by the way. Actually, up to 200 billion. Up to 200 billion, because they have bigger appetites, right? They want 120 billion to continue war, and they want 60 billion on top of that to have some money for something else too, right? So you can imagine how many mansions Zelensky and his criminal associates going to buy, by the way, in top of whatever they already have brought all over the world, right? But it is what it is. It is what it is. The Western taxpayers, gonna take this bill too, right? And also, dear friends, I spoke about this news in yesterday's update, but in case you have not watched it, let me tell you that Austria's foreign minister, BT Melny Reisinger, told the world that their country is open to reconsidering its long-standing neutrality and potentially joining NATO. And well, I don't know about you, dear friends, but me personally and Russian leadership no longer considers Austria to be a neutral country. I think this is the case in majority of the countries worldwide, especially outside of the Western world, and even inside the Western world, by the way. I don't think people in Finland or in Sweden or in Germany or, I don't know, US or UK actually are considering Austria to be neutral. I mean, since when? Austria has joined every anti-Russian step that collective US countries took. Literally every anti-Russian step. Austrian weapons being transferred to Kyiv regime, right? And same can be said about Switzerland. So how they are neutral? Of course they are not. And therefore, because they lost status of the neutral countries, there is no longer point to play the games, right? So therefore, I think, yes, it's only a matter of time, and Austria and also Switzerland potentially will join NATO, join whatever other terrorist organizations they have in the West, right? This will don't really influence much Russia's military doctrine or military calculus, because as it did not influence much anything when Finland and Sweden joined NATO, because both countries were integrated in anti-Russian coalition anyways. Right? While officially joining NATO, this integration just became formal, official. Otherwise, both countries, Sweden and Finland, were Russian enemies anyways, right? Due to criminal activity, criminal policies of their own leaderships. I don't know about people of Finland or Sweden. Do they see us as enemies? Maybe they do. I mean, majority. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But their government clearly is acting as enemies of Russia, as it is the case in majority of the Western countries, right? If not in all Western countries. But nevertheless, yes, soon Austria to be expected officially joining NATO. Okay. Also interesting news, I think, that US might, or maybe disinformation on part of collective West, that US might pull a third of its troops from Europe, according to Politico, US propaganda outlet. United States is reportedly considering withdrawing up to 1/3 of its military personnel from Europe, according to Politico. Currently, there are estimated 90 to 100,000 American troops stationed across the continent, with the Germany housing the largest share, about 35,000. Analysts believe that Trump's likely first move will be to reverse Biden's deployments, particularly by recalling their 20,000 US troops sent to Europe in 2022. Even so, this would only modestly reduce their overall presence, according for less than a third of current forces. And yet again, this might well be deception, part of deception operation on part of collective West or on part of US leadership and the Pentagon. I don't think US is going to withdraw any troops from Europe whatsoever. It's exactly the opposite is happening, in my opinion. You remember I reported like 2 weeks ago, maybe less, that US, for example, has deployed their nuclear bombs into UK first time since 2008, right? So US is actually increasing its military presence in Europe, including in terms of nuclear weapons. So this information from Politico truly might be part of deception campaign. Obviously, Russian leadership, Russian militarism, not basing their decision-making process on reports in Western media. Russia has intelligence services, and they already have provided Russian leadership, I guess, with precise information about U.S. military presence in Europe. No doubts about that. RT is also reporting that Kremlin reveals details of Putin Netanyahu call. Well, there was a conversation, by the way, between Putin and Netanyahu. Although before I go into details here, let me once again notice, dear friends, let me once again notice that this media project is completely subscriber funded, and and if you like my work, if you want to see potential for development of this project, independent media project from Russia, please consider to support. You can do it through several means. You can donate through PayPal and Boosty platforms. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis. You can use crypto for support, and during the live streams itself, you can use a super chat feature on Rumble to donate or become a premium subscriber. My channel is monetized on Rumble, so there is such an option there, which is absent on YouTube because my channel never gonna be monetized on YouTube. So yes, there is several means, by the way, that you can support if you want to. All the links are on this video in description box, and after this stream, I will also publish a pinned comment with the links and the addresses and so on. Many thanks to everybody who already supported and continues to support and keeps me in this field of news and political commentary. Extremely competitive field, isn't it? Even though when it comes to daily news updates, there are not that many channels from Russia, independent channels. I know what I do, right? And in terms of literally daily news update, I don't know any other independent channel, by the way. There are channels from Russia in this segment of news and political commentary, but not when it comes to daily updates. I can see David King's comment now. SmoothX12 gives good insights. Of course, many of you dear friends are familiar with the channel of American-Russian military expert. Goodness me, how could I forget his name? Ань, фамилию напомни, пожалуйста. В США что вот, эксперт российский. Ну, американ, ну, гражданин США. Мартьянов, да. Бог ты мой. Sometimes you might forget such a simple stuff, by the way. So yes, Alexander Martyanov, by the way. Andrei, sorry, Martyanov is a host of SmoothX12 channel. And dear friends, if you by chance are not familiar with the channel, under my videos on YouTube in recommendation list, you can see his link to his channel too. So yes, but yet again, obviously Martyanov provides great content, by the way. I'm a subscriber to his channel and watching on regular basis, listening on regular basis, yes. And but he has a different type of content, isn't it? It's not necessarily daily news updates. It's a bit different, right? Although he does great work, and after all, we should keep in mind that he's a Russian, American Russian, but he is not from Russia. He's not reporting from Russia, as I do. That's what I meant, by the way. That I'm physically in Russia, right? Nevertheless, all the links, by the way, are under this video in description box, if you want to support, and will be in a pinned comment. Okay, let's continue with some more news now. And well, yes, Kremlin revealed details of Putin Netanyahu call that took place yesterday, I believe. So Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday in a phone call focused on developments in the Middle East, according to Kremlin. The two leaders discussed their situation in Syria and the recent escalation between Israel and Iran. Moscow reaffirmed its commitment to peaceful resolution of regional conflicts, the Kremlin said in a statement. Putin stressed the importance of preserving Syria's unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. He also offered Russia's assistance in establishing dialogue between Israel and Iran following the recent conflict between the two nations. Moscow is ready to contribute in every possible way to finding a negotiated solution to their tensions around the Iranian nuclear program. Putin and Netanyahu also agreed to continue the dialogue on pressing bilateral and international issues, the Kremlin added. And by the way, it is unfortunate that RT, maybe there was no additional information and RT was unable to report about it in readout. But I think in this formal conversation, number one topic should be Israeli crimes against civilians in Palestine, and the Russian president should demand from Netanyahu and his criminal associates to stop genocide immediately. Maybe Putin spoke about this in that conversation, maybe not, I just don't know, but in this report, there is talks about Syria, Iran, and so on, but not a word about Palestine, which is yet again, maybe today we will receive some more information, because how gonna talk to Netanyahu and don't touch up on subject of Palestine. It's just nonsensical, right? And my hope is that Russian leadership will confront these genocidal maniacs that are in charge of Israel. And my hope is that Russia, as a country who played a crucial role in defeat of Nazi Germany, will play also a crucial role in demilitarization and denazification of a fascist Israel now. That's my personal opinion. And even though Putin had good relationships with Netanyahu, by the way, I mean, in the past, I think now it's a question of morality, by the way, and principles, where we stand. And I want Russian leadership to be very clear on actions of Israel. It's a genocide. Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians. Israel constantly commits war crimes against humanity. And I hope Russian leadership will go ahead and say it as it is, without polite correctness. It is no time for polite correctness, by the way. Say it as it is and confront these mass murderers that are in charge of Israel, this fascist freaking state. Also, by the way, reporter that Netherlands sanctions far-right Israeli ministers. Ben-Gvir, basically, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, these are despicable elements, absolutely despicable elements, scum of humanity, by the way, was sanctioned by Netherlands. These are not far-right elements. These are outright fascists, by the way. These are outright fascists, genocidal maniacs, by the way. Just Google it, dear friends, what kind of statements these creatures are making, man. These are outright fascists and genocidal maniacs. And the entire leadership of Israel is same, by the way. If you think others are like lesser evil, not really. They all are evil. All of them, by the way. And unfortunately, I think I have enough arguments to say that majority of Israelis are fascists too, by the way. That's my personal opinion, which is based on information that I have, including social studies that was conducted in Israel, according to which majority of Israelis are in full support of all the atrocities that Israel has committed against Palestinians. And majority of Israelis want to complete blockade of Palestine so that no humanitarian aid, none, literally nothing will go into Palestine so that everybody will die there from starvation. That is already happening, by the way. Israel is using starvation as a weapon, right? And don't be mistaken. This recent media campaign of Israel that they are allowing drop of some humanitarian aid, and they let a dozen or 2 dozen of trucks to reach Gaza Strip. And don't let these fascists, by the way, to lie to you. This is not even a drop in the ocean when it comes to actual need of Palestinians, when it comes to humanitarian aid basics, by the way, food and water. So, I mean, Netherlands are taking stand, and you know what? Credit should be given when credit is deserved. And yesterday I reported that Netherlands designated Israel as a threat for the state. And today we have this report that these fascist elements in Israeli leadership have been sanctioned. At least something, by the way. This will not stop genocide of Palestinian people, but at least some stand from Netherlands is being demonstrated. And as I said, man, credit should be given when it deserved. And I support this decision of Netherlands, obviously. I hope Russian leadership will sanction everybody from Israel leadership. literally everybody, because they all are mass murderers and genocidal maniacs. And I hope world community will find their strength, find dignity in itself, by the way, right? To get together. I know many Western countries will not participate in that, especially ones that are under strict US control. But even some Western countries may participate in international forum on a situation in Palestine. These countries should issue ultimatum to Israel. I spoke about it, before too. That's the only way at this point that I see realistic to stop the genocide. But international community should get together. It could not be done in UN because US will veto it, France will veto it most likely, UK will veto it. So take another place, another forum, organized conference, issued ultimatum and to Israel to withdraw forces to stop the genocide immediately, to withdraw forces from all the occupied territory and agree on compensations for all their crimes that Israel committed for decades and decades. And and to undergo also, and Israel has to agree to undergo demilitarization, that is denuclearization and denazification process. If Israel agrees on this demand, okay. If not, then military action to be taken against this fascist state by international community. That's the only way to stop this genocide, by the way. Let's be real here. No statements, no warnings, nothing will work. Nothing. No sanctions, by the way, obviously. Israel is a fascist state and has to be politically or militarily, but demilitarized and denazified. And Israel has to withdraw from all the occupied territories and to the borders of 48, basically. And has to pay compensations to everybody that Israel ever harmed, right? And their descendants. That's how it has to be done, by the way. If human civilization at our times has any dignity whatsoever, that's how it is. And this so-called international community, which is where it is, by the way, where this international community? Can you tell me? But if we are really honest and genuine and want these crimes to end that Israel is committing, then that's the way to do it, in my opinion. I mean, you may have different take, share your opinion, dear friends, but I think this will work. RIA Novosti is reporting that Houthis, Ansar Allah movement, by the way, also known as Houthi rebels, and it is Ansar Allah movement, by the way. Houthi rebels, Houthis are, Shia Muslims, right? And Yemen is not just Shia Muslims, not just Houthis, but they're Sunnis and Sunni Muslims and it's a Yemeni people, by the way. It's a Yemeni people, and movement is called the Ansar Allah. And so, yes, Ansar Allah movement that unites Yemeni people, by the way, of different ethnic background and religious views, threaten to attack U.S. ships in cooperation with Israel. U.S. ships that are basically linked to Israel. Ships of American trading companies will become a target of Ansar Allah movement in the event of international interaction with the Israeli ports. The group's Politburo member, Mohammed Al-Buhaiti, told the RIA Novosti, "We are forced to expand our operations against the ships of international companies that interact with Israel, including American ones, as a part of our support for the Palestinian people to lift their blockade of the Gaza Strip and stop their mass genocide," he said. According to their agency's source, this does not violate their ceasefire agreement with the United States, which their movement is observing. According to Al-Buhaiti, previous attacks on American ships were a response to aggression against Yemen in early 2024 in accordance with the legitimate right to self-defense and were not related to what is happening in the Gaza Strip. So Yemen, by the way, is a country, only country actually at this point, that actually does something to support Palestinians. That's something not just on the level of statements, but on the level of action too. You know, Yemen, only country that actually tries as much as they can, by the way, to support Palestinian people that need all the support that they can get. So U.S. vessels linked to Israel should avoid Red Sea and coastline of Yemen. That's for sure. The Novosti is also reporting that EU will not be able to invest 600 billion in the US as it was pledged by Ursula Bursular during the Trump negotiations between Washington and Brussels. Of course, nowadays everybody is talking about this so-called deal that was reached between EU and US, which is basically capitulation sort of EU before US. That's the attitude that many experts have, not just here in Russia, but worldwide, by the way. It's a disgrace what Brussels did, by the way, right? And total betrayal of citizens of EU member states, their interests. It's crazy. It's crazy what has happened. And during that agreement, by the way, Ursula Bursular agreed not just to buy US energy for $750 billion in next 3 years and to purchase weapons from US for hundreds of billions of dollars, but she somehow also agreed that EU will invest 600 billion into US economy, right? God knows what they meant by this. At this point, it is very difficult to understand what the hell Western so-called politicians or the elites are talking about, right? Or what they mean while saying something. But yes, there was a promise to invest 600 million given to US, and economists are saying that this is not feasible. EU is in no position to invest anything into US, right? Definitely not 600 billion. So European Union will not be able to fulfill its promise to invest 600 billion in the US economy, Politico reported, citing unnamed EU officials. The European Union has admitted it does not have the power to deliver on the pledge to invest 600 billion in the United States economy, just hours after it made the pledge at the landmark trade talks in Scotland. That's because the money would come entirely from private sector investments, over which Brussels has no power, the publication said. So, I mean, what is going on even, right? Public sector, if public sector wants to invest, they will invest anyways, but you're not going to force public sector to invest 600 billion in US economy, right? Because maybe they don't have this volume of money to do it, man. How are you gonna force them? A different story is that due to this contract, by the way, process of the industrialization of European economies will further accelerate, and many hundreds or many thousands even companies in EU territory will have no option but to shut down their productions in Europe and move business to North America or maybe some other part of this world, because if they stay in Europe, they will go bankrupt, because energy cost, which is already tremendously high in Europe, gonna maybe even double, because EU now committed to completely cut ties or the cooperation with Russia when it comes to energy, and they fully rely on US on import from US, right? LNG, oil and gas. And even there, by the way, it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do, right? Because reports are that, and same Politico is writing, by the way, that EU promised to buy 750 billion worth of energy from US is also a fantasy, something that cannot be done due to some technical reasons, right? So the European Union's promise to buy 750 billion worth of American energy resources over 3 years to avoid the trade war with the United States is virtually impossible to fulfill, Politico newspaper reported, citing experts. According to their publication, currently limited supplies from the US, technical hurdles, and Brussels' lack of authority over import deals mean that the target will be incredibly difficult to reach. According to Laura Page, senior analyst at Kepler, the amount proposed by their community is simply sky high and completely unrealistic. EU spent 335 billion euros on energy imports last year, including 76 billion for US energy, meaning the bloc will have to effectively triple its US energy imports over the next 3 years, according to Page, while avoiding other supplies such as Norway, which supplies cheaper gas via pipeline. So now EU gonna hit Norway too. This is crazy, man. This is just crazy. According to Humayun Falakashi, head of crude oil analyst at Kepler, the EU currently buys 12% of its oil and their fuel from the US. This figure could be increased to a ceiling of 14%, given the EU refineries can only process limited amount of specific US crude behind. This is truly fantastic, the expert said. So, I mean, yes, technically it's not possible. US and the EU have signed deal that cannot be honored by EU. They just are in no position to do this, right? It's a tragic comedy, by the way, what is happening with Europe nowadays. But it again, as long as majority of public is in deep sleep there in Europe, these people are not challenged, right? Western elites in Europe or in North America, they are not challenged, by the way, and they feel free to do any craziness whatsoever, right? And that's what they do. That's what they do, by the way. For example, did you ever see U.S. president being challenged on the matter of these sanctions on Russia or secondary sanctions on or secondary tariffs on Russian allies or the countries that are buying energy, for example, from Russia, energy sources from Russia? Did anybody ever challenge Trump on that? Because you know what? It's not just India or China or Brazil, by the way, BRICS member states that are buying energy, for example, from Russia. It's also U.S. allies, by the way, and U.S. itself. Maybe Trump has no idea about it, but U.S. actually buys Russian oil, maybe in small quantities, but they do buy Russian oil. And most importantly, they buy Russian enriched uranium, by the way. U.S. is a permanent client of Rosatom when it comes to purchasing of enriched uranium for U.S. nuclear power stations. So Trump gonna tariff 100% U.S. itself? I mean, really? And it's not even that. Take a look at the Europe, by the way. So many European countries are continuing to buy Russian energy, right? It's not just Slovakia and Hungary, by the way, that buy Russian gas and oil, and Hungary relies on Russia also in nuclear energy terms, right? But France is one of the biggest buyers of Russian LNG, by the way. Netherlands is one of their biggest buyers of Russian LNG. Spain, right? And many others. So US is willing to also sanction with 100% tariffs these European states, and also Turkey, by the way. No, they're not going to do this, right? And that's why in the beginning of this news segment, by the way, while I was commenting on Trump's ultimatum and so on, I said that I think this is a bluff on part of US. This is just a bluff. They are in no position to actually act on this threat of imposing 100% tariffs on Russian on the countries that buy energy from Russia. They cannot do this, right? They might, after Trump's ultimatum will expire, they might start dancing around the subject and impose some 10% additional tariffs or 20% additional tariffs to try at least on China and India and Brazil or some other countries. They might try, but even that would be too much of a hit on U.S. economy itself, right? So I'm not sure they will even impose that, like 10 or 20% on top of whatever is already imposed, right? So it's a bluff. It's a bluff on part of U.S. But unfortunately, as I said in the beginning, I'm afraid after this ultimatum will expire, U.S., UK, France, Germany, and their other NATO member states and their proxy terrorist regime in Kiev will escalate militarily. That's what I expect personally. They're gonna escalate militarily, and I think Russia will have no option but to retaliate. By the way, and this time in such a scale that will eventually will force, after few steps ahead, will force globalist Western ruling class basically to face the reality, come to their senses, and acknowledge that they lost, right? After that, we might see the escalation. Nevertheless, let's continue. When it comes to this US-EU deal, by the way, it's a total disaster for both countries, I will say, especially for both sides, I will say. EU is not a country, isn't it? Or tries to act like one. It's a disaster for both sides, especially for EU. And also this report, dear friends, that US tariffs to cost German car giants over 10 billion euros. Germany's leading car makers are set to lose over 10 billion euros in cash flow this year due to US trade tariffs, according to studies cited by the Financial Times. The industry is already contending with their soaring energy costs, failing sales, and intensifying competition from China. So yes, the industrialization of Europe, by the way, will only accelerate. The industrialization of Europe will only accelerate due to this new so-called deal between US and the EU. But yet again, if they don't care, then they don't care. And you know what? Let's end this new segment on that, dear friends. I hope you did find this segment informative and useful. And I guess there was no super chat. So Ein. There was no super chat. There was no donation during the stream. So nothing to share, nothing to highlight now. And so let's have like 10-15 minutes community chat, dear friends, now. And I will end this stream on that. As always, I will scroll through comments. There was on PayPal, by the way. Thank you. There was donation on our PayPal during the stream, dear friends, from Klaus. No comments. Donation of $22. Thank you very much, Klaus. I appreciate your support. And as always, dear friends, when there is donation through PayPal, I'm not only saying first name. I will say full name only if I have permission on that in comment itself. So yes, let's have a community chat, dear friends, for 10-15 minutes. Please, if you have not clicked that like button already, dear friends, please do it. It might help this video to reach wider audience, and maybe I will make 1 or 2 short clips after live stream from this video. And if you will come across those short clips, and if you have time, please leave some commentary there too. Especially on YouTube, by the way, its algorithm is so aggressive that, you know, capital Q and or capital letters will make it easier, dear friends, to spot your question or the comment that you want to be highlighted during this stream. I'm scrolling, dear friends, through chat. On StreamYard, I can see both chats simultaneously, and I did not notice no question. My apologies if I miss your question, dear friends. There is active communication before members of our community, and I love that. I love to see that. It is great to have a exchange of opinions in real time. Harry Honkanen is commenting, could America beat AIPAC? Could US ever beat CIA, Mossad? That's a question for $1 million, by the way. I'm skeptical that US society will manage to regain control over their country and their destiny. I hope I'm wrong, though. I hope US citizens will manage to reclaim their own country and to build the new elites that actually serve the people. But currently, this does looks like fantasy. You know, I don't know what our friends from US will say about it, but Alexander is commenting, Trump changed after he got that golden pager from Bibi. I mean, he definitely is acting strangely, I will say, isn't it? I mean, how he can contradict almost every promise that he made during the election campaign. I mean, literally. He's doing exactly almost in every single case, he's doing exactly the opposite. And some might argue, well, at least he's doing something to secure southern borders. I mean, really? There is a big noise, isn't it? There is a big noise, ICE this and ICE that. But in reality, how many illegal migrants were deported? Allegedly, there are some 20 million illegal migrants in US, right? Some say 22 million, some say 28 million. Seems like no one really knows in US how many illegal migrants are there, right? And how many was deported in 6 months since Trump took office? 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. That's about it, right? I don't think it's even 100,000. I just remind you, dear friends, that Iran just recently, in 1 month's time, or in a couple of months' time, deported 400,000 Afghans that were illegally in Iran, right? So there is a big noise around the topic of illegal migrants in US, but when it comes to actual steps to deport those people, level of effectiveness is not right there. And you know why? I have explained my position on that many times ago. I think Uniparty, by the way, has agreed long ago that they need to increase artificially population of US to stay relevant on a geopolitical scale in the long run. Currently, US is about 300 million population, right? And they need at least 500 million. In my understanding, calculus of the US ruling class is that they need at least 500 million to stay relevant, right, on a geopolitical scale. And to reach this 500 million in relatively short time, they have to open border and orchestrate this influx of tens of millions of people. And that's exactly what is happening. This is uniparty decision, by the way. This is uniparty policy. No matter which politician says what, in reality, influx of new migrants is a policy, by the way, unofficial policy of US ruling class, right? And process will continue. Process will continue, by the way. And once Trump will leave office, check the numbers. It's gonna be so many noise, big noise, by the way, that Trump was fighting to secure border and Trump was doing this and that. But in reality, just check the numbers. They might deport actually eventually, 500,000 illegals, but in the same time frame, maybe 2, 3, 4 million new migrants get in. So it's a policy, by the way. It's a hidden policy of Western or US ruling class to increase population of the US artificially, and that's why this migration crisis is not going to stop. No way, right? And Trump himself, yes, he changed, by the way. He's he leaves the impression that he's being blackmailed, really. I mean, maybe you will disagree with me, but that's how it looks. People do change their minds, right? If you might have a certain opinion today on certain developments, and if tomorrow you will receive some more information, that will influence your judgment, obviously, right? But this cannot be the case in regards to every single topic, right? And in case of Trump, I mean, he's like completely different person now on almost everything, or every relevant subject that he was articulating with during the election campaign. It is what it is. He's been blackmailed or he's a really good actor, by the way. I don't know which one is, but Samumalo is commenting, no one wants to fight for satanic schizo imbeciles and their interests. I agree with you. I want to believe that this is the case, really, and societies in, let's say, collective West don't really want war with Russia. But yet again, they're not being asked, by the way. First of all, vast majority of societies are in deep sleep, right? They're indoctrinated, propagandized, and they don't really understand what the hell is going on. Thanks God, there is informed minorities in the Western countries that are truly paying attention to developments and realizing how dangerous the situation is. But unfortunately, their influence on the processes is very, very little, if any. Right, but it is good that these groups exist. By the way, right? It's a hope. It generates hope that maybe sometime in the future they will manage to wake up significant number of their fellow citizens, and maybe in that case we will see some progress in relationships, let's say, between West and Russia, which will be good, of course. But currently we are in a situation when there is a very little room for optimism, really. Before the escalation, unfortunately, we're gonna face unprecedented scale of escalation, I guess. Dear friends, let me end Yaroslav Pelichik is commenting, asking question, how is solved the crisis of water in Donbass? In Donbass, by the way, due to it's a little bit different matter, but in Donbass, due to drone strikes by Kiev regime, NATO, about I believe 150,000 people were without electricity. I hope in many areas electricity was is back now. Obviously, emergency services are working to deal with the situation, and when it comes to water, well, in some areas, I believe that there's still some graphics when it comes to water supplies, but yet again, information about it is limited because there is open sources, right? There is Telegram channels and so on that are reporting different stuff on the matter. And if you are not there, I never been in Donetsk, for example, or any other city in Donbass. If you have not been there, if you have not seen yourself the situation, it is difficult to say, isn't it? But I'm quite sure engineering services are doing whatever is necessary to make sure that electricity supply, water supply is no issue for the people. But we should keep in mind that Donbass is a war-torn region at this point. It's right on the line of contact, right? So therefore, obviously, these military hostilities do influence the situation. Also, Nidish Kumar is asking Levan, how do you think they will activate Azerbaijan in 10 days? Well, I did not think about it really, Nidish. Thank you for giving me a reason to take a look at such a scenario as, for example, escalation in the Southern Caucasus region. What collective West gonna do with Azerbaijan? They're not gonna force Baku to start military operations against Russia, right? That would be suicidal for them. Maybe they will provoke conflict between hot phase of the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia due to in regards to in direction of Zangezur corridor, for example, or something. Maybe, but I just don't know, really. We will find out. We will find out. But for sure, we should expect anything, by the way. I said that after this ultimatum expire, most likely US, UK, France, Germany, and others that have some assets inside Russia will use a significant number of them to orchestrate large-scale sabotage inside Russia. First of all, to distract communication and logistics, right? To harm as many people as possible, ordinary people, by the way, ordinary citizens. And that's why they are shelling, by the way, railways, literally on daily basis now. They are shelling railways, right? Civilian trains, by the way, passenger trains, because they know it's a summertime, it's a holiday time, right? And there are people from all over the Russia are traveling towards the southern regions. And they want to create this distraction and put some fear into people's hearts, but they're going to lose, by the way. They're not going to succeed for sure, right? And also I mentioned the risk that after this ultimatum will expire, collective West countries will orchestrate unprecedented scale of long-range strikes deep into Russian territory, including towards Moscow and St. Petersburg. And eventually Russian leadership, I think, will be forced to, or will have no option but to retaliate, not just on Kiev-controlled territory, but elsewhere too, let's say this way. And we should expect also escalations along the border, right? Along the southern borders. In Southern Caucasus region, it's a possibility that something might happen there. In Central Asian republics, by the way, I mean, collective West do have assets everywhere, right? So they're gonna go on assault, by the way. After this ultimatum, they're gonna go on a full-scale assault on Russia. So let's see how how it will go and how we will react on that. Dear friends, let me enter this live stream now. There was also a question. Levan, did Ukraine really intercepted Kinzhal? What kind of hypersonic weapon it is? Glider cruiser? I don't think they intercepted Kinzhal, by the way. Kinzhal is visually, you have seen Kinzhal, isn't it? It's like a Iskander missile. Visually, it looks like Iskander missile. It's hypersonic, and on its approach to target, it changes trajectory, I believe. It's a missile, not a glider. It visually, it looks like a missile. It has no wings as gliders do. But it has in construction, it has additional engines, or how can I describe it, that turns the missile right in air. So it's a hypersonic, which is a big deal, and same time it changes direction while flying towards the target. So basically, you air defense systems are struggling to calculate ballistics of the missile because you can't do it. Missile changes the trajectory all the time, right? You just calculated this trajectory, and wow, next second missile has moved, right? And then trajectory is different. So no, the regime might say whatever they dream about, but I don't believe Western countries even have missile systems, air defense systems that are capable of intercepting Kinzhal. Maybe by chance something will happen. By chance, sometimes things happen, but Patriot gonna intercept Kinzhal? No, and Patriot is their best system that they have, right? Patriot would not even see Kinzhal, by the way, maybe, or would not be able to track. It's overhyped system, isn't it? These Patriots, by the way. overhyped, as everything, all military equipment from the West is overhyped. Oh, this is a wonder weapon and this and that. And when it comes to auctions, by the way, I mean, usually it's just a piece of garbage. That's about it, right? Over-engineered piece of crap. That's usually the case. But nevertheless, dear friends, let me end this live stream now. It's 1 hour and 40 minutes. Thank you all for your attention, for your support. And please, if you can, click that like button if you did not yet. It might help to reach wider audience. Maybe algorithm will show this video to more people on YouTube. And if you come across my short videos, by the way, please pay some attention to it also. Maybe you can like her or leave some comment. This is it for now. Let's see how day goes news-wise, dear friends. And if there is some major developments, I will record second news update for Patreon and Boosty. And maybe I will publish on YouTube and Rumble some part of that update as a sort of advertising, in the hope that some members of our bigger community on YouTube and Rumble will decide to support my work by subscribing, while subscribing to my Patreon page or Boosty page, by the way. Okay, this is it for now. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day and take care.